Hey everybody, my name is Christina Welch with the Welch team of Keller Williams, and we are bringing you weekly information for you to be able to use in your real estate career and to be able to put out to the world to your customers. Today we had Riley in our office talking to us a little bit about contracts and timelines, and I will let him introduce himself for us.
Hi there, my name is Riley Williams. I'm a local real estate attorney here in Northeast Florida with J. Riley Williams PLC.
So contracts can get kind of boring.
Yes, they can.
And when you're going over it, it's hard to keep the attention of most agents because it can drag on and on. So today we're focusing completely on the as-is portion on the FAR bar contract. So what does that mean exactly?
The as-is means essentially that the seller is presenting the sale to the buyer as an as-is deal, meaning they're not making any representations about the state of the property, and at the very beginning of the process, they're not committing themselves to making the repairs for the buyer.
So what we hear a lot is, oh, you can't ask for anything, you can't do an inspection. Would you say that that's not true?
That's not really true, because the buyer is still going to do their inspections, right? They still want to make sure the property's in good order. So after they do their inspections and they get their inspection report back, there's nothing wrong with going to the seller and at least asking for a repair credit or reduction in the purchase price, or for them to make certain repairs. Simply by asking is not going to cancel the contract. So there's nothing wrong, or it doesn't hurt to go ahead and have the buyer make the request. The seller can say no, and then the buyer can decide whether they want to move forward or not.
So that's on a FAR bar contract. So most of our agents in our industry use a NEFAR contract. So let's say I'm an agent and I wrote a contract and I write the words as is in paragraph 17. Does that negate anything on our NEFAR contracts?
It does not negate anything under the NEFAR contract, and actually the NEFAR contract is an as-is contract. So if you take a look at that inspection provision, you'll see that as-is language there in that part of the NEFAR contract.
So it can get a little tricky, I know, especially in this industry, because a lot of people want to give their buyers a little bit of an edge, and with that edge they try to write in as is, but we need to make sure we fully understand it completely in our industry for our buyers, for our sellers, so the buyer still can do inspections.
Correct.
They still can ask for repairs.
Absolutely.
They just need to do it within whatever timeline they've allowed it.
Right. They need to do it in that inspection period, whether you negotiate 10, 15, 20, or 5 days.
Yes. And we like to see 5 days if you can get it, just because it really tightens everything up if we need to put something back on the market.
Sure.
With all of that being said, we had a debate around our office recently, and that debate was, when does that 7-day time period start if there is a repair request submitted? So when would you say that timeline starts?
So that timeline, that 7 plus 3 days to negotiate repairs, it starts from the date that the seller receives the request. And so unlike that triggering date in the NEFAR contract, it starts from the date that it's received, as opposed to the inspection period or the loan approval period, which says within blank days after the effective date. So you get that additional 1 day there with those other timelines. But with respect to the 7 plus 3 day negotiation period, it's 7 plus 3 days from the date the seller does receive that repair request.
Well, and it's so funny because it's just that one word, date of receipt versus date after.
That's right.
And so for us as agents, we don't need to be attorneys, because we have attorneys that work with us and help guide us through the contract terms. But for us, we do need to be able to read the contract. And if you're missing those words, it can really throw you off one day. So date of receipt versus day after can really be detrimental to your customer, especially if you're coming down to the wire.
That's absolutely correct. So if you're working with a buyer and you're 1 day off, the form does have a requirement that time is of the essence. So that means that if you miss your deadline by 1 day, that means you're technically going to be in default. And for the buyer, that could mean they're unable to cancel and get their binder deposit back because they didn't get their loan approved, or they're not happy with their inspection.
Yes. And I'm just going to point out one other thing. Timelines, they cannot end on a Saturday, Sunday,
or a holiday.
So most holidays fall on a Monday, especially if they're a federal holiday. So if your timeline's ending on a Monday and it's a holiday, it's automatically going to.
It's automatically going to roll over, so you don't need to do an amendment to the contract just by virtue of the language of the form. If the deadline ends on, or the end of the period ends on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday, it's automatically going to roll over to the next business day.
Yes. So a lot of agents in our industry, I want you to know this timeline. I want you guys to read the contract and become familiar with it because it's a huge purchase or sale for most people. This might be the only time that they do it. It might be their first time doing it, or it could be their 10th time doing it. And have you truly gone through and actually read through it? What would you advise new agents coming into the industry?
Questions, questions, questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no stupid question. You want to talk with your broker. You want to speak with an attorney if you can, but you just don't want to miss a deadline. You don't want to jeopardize your buyer's buying or deposit back. And you just want to look professional. So I think until you're ultimately familiar with the form, don't be afraid to ask questions.
No, that is so true. Please ask. If you have any questions for us, we're always here to help educate and guide you in our industry as best we can. We're not attorneys, but we can read the black and white piece of it, and that's what we'll do. We'll pull up the contract, read the black and white piece, and if we can't figure it out, then we'll refer it to Riley.
Absolutely.
We can be reached at 904-476-5539 if you do have any questions, or how can they get in touch with you?
If you want to get a hold of me, you can call area code 904-425-0040.
Thank you guys again, and we will see you next week for more information on how you can get ahead in our real estate industry.